floating action buttons were introduced in material design as a way of showing a promoted action in a view in any application. Many mobile applications make use of floating action buttons, especially if you have seen Android applications. The floating action button is very extensively used in many applications, especially those designed by Google as the default applications for the Android platform. In this exercise, we'll look at Ionic's support for floating action buttons, and we will see how we can include floating action buttons in our view and make use of floating action buttons. Now, of course, in this exercise, I'll show you one example of floating action buttons, but you will see me employing floating action buttons for the promoted actions in many other views, and we will put them into place as we go along in the various views of our application. So let's look at how we can create a floating action button in the home page view of our Ionic application. Going to our application, let's switch to the home.html page. And in the home.html page, I'm going to introduce a floating action button right at the bottom of the file here. So to introduce a floating action button, we will do ion fab. And this button, I'm going to position it at the right bottom of the screen here. So this is how we would create an ion fab or the floating action button in our application. So for this floating action button, let me first create one floating action button here, and then later on we will use a floating action button list. So to do this, I'm going to introduce a button with the ion fab used as an attribute here, and then I will give it a color of the accent color. Now typically in material design, when you have the primary and accent colors, you would use the accent colors for floating action buttons, and so that's why I am applying the accent color to this button. And then inside this button, I will create a floating action button with the ion icon introduced in there, with the name as arrow drop up. So an up directional arrow in this button here. So with this, a floating action button will be created into our application. So let's save the changes and then go and take a quick look at the FAB in our home page. Going to our application in the browser, you immediately notice the floating action button at the right bottom corner of the view here. So we can click on the button. Right now, this button is not doing any action at the moment, but we can introduce an action for this button. So as you realize, since this is a button, the button can be used for creating any different kind of action that you feel appropriate in that particular view. Now in this example, in the home view, I'm going to use this floating action button to show a bunch of additional buttons on top. When this button is clicked, those buttons will be displayed out to show the various social media site links for my restaurant. So to do that, I will use something called the FAB list for creating a list of additional buttons which can be clicked to reach out to the various social media links of the restaurant here. So to create a floating action button which when clicked will show a list of additional buttons, we will use the ion fab list as the element here, and I will specify the side as top. So meaning that when the button is clicked, this list of buttons which will be included in the ion fab list will be shown to the top of the floating action button. You can either say top, bottom, left, or right, depending on where the FAB is positioned and which direction you want to show the list of the buttons here. Now, given the current position, I should either choose top or left. And in this example, I have chosen top, as a way of displaying the additional buttons for my floating action button. So let me go ahead and complete this fab list here. And inside this fab list, we can now include various buttons. So let me include a button with the Ion fab. So this is again an additional floating action like button which will be displayed when the original FAB is clicked. So for this button, I'm going to select the class as male, which would be a CSS class that I'm going to apply to this button. And then I'll apply the Ion icon and name as male and close the Ion icon. So you see that I am displaying a small button on top. So pretty soon you will see the result of this when we complete this modification to the home.html page. So first I introduce a mail button here. Then I'm going to introduce one more, which is the Google Plus button, and the corresponding logo would be logo Google Plus, which is part of the Ion icons. So as you realize, I'm including buttons for the social media sites for this restaurant. So the Google Plus button. Then let me introduce a YouTube button, and also the icon's name would be logo YouTube, as you would expect. And we'll create one for Twitter. If you are anybody in this world today, you should be on social media. So putting social media buttons into our application makes absolute sense in this exercise. And then the last one, how can we forget? Facebook. Okay, so I have a mail link, I have the Google Plus, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And you could also have LinkedIn. Okay, while we are here, we might as well put in a LinkedIn. Link also. All right, so that completes the set of buttons. Now, these classes that I've introduced, I will be defining these classes in my CSS file with the appropriate colors for that specific social media site. So you recall that each social media site has its own brand colors and the brand icons. So we need to configure that appropriately. So let's add in our own CSS classes with the appropriate colors for the various social media sites. Oh, this one should also be button mail here. So with this change to the home.html, I'm going to now move into home.css file and then introduce a whole bunch of CSS classes here. So let me start out with button Facebook, and inside here I will specify the color, which would be all white, important, and background color would be I need to be very careful to choose the correct color, the branding color for each of these social media sites. And this one would be 3B5998 and important. So this is important color branding for Facebook here, like that. So you see that we have the color, which is the text color or the foreground logo color, and the background color appropriately set up here. Now, similarly, let me add in more for the second one would be Google Plus, and here the foreground color remains the same. The background color would be DD4B39, and Google Plus, then YouTube, and for YouTube the background color would be again FF4B39. Now, if you ask me how I figured this out, I did a search on Google and then found out the appropriate colors that these sites are using. I didn't come up with those numbers myself. So for LinkedIn, it is 007BB6. Color branding is very, very important in this world. So LinkedIn, Twitter. For Twitter, the color is 55 ACEE. And finally, for mail, the corresponding color would be 51 2DA8. This is our color for our own restaurant branding, so which is the deep purple color that I have chosen. So now we have introduced all the SCSS classes or CSS classes, whichever way you want to interpret it, into our home.acss file. Let's save the changes. Let's go and take a look at the resulting floating action button. Going to our application in the browser. Now, when you click on the floating action button, you see that the set of mini buttons, mini floating action buttons for the various social media sites are now shown here. And then note that the FAB itself turns into a cross. Click on that, and then the the mini buttons disappear. Same thing in the iOS view. You see the floating action buttons being displayed there, and then show and hide the FABs. So this is one way you can make use of floating action buttons in your application. With this, we complete this exercise. In this exercise, we saw the use of floating action buttons in our Ionic application, and we saw how we can use list of floating action buttons, which can be shown when the main floating action button is clicked in the view. With this, we complete this exercise. This is a good time for you to save the changes to your Git repository with the message FABs.